Robert. Don't block Robert.
Yeah.
You can actually stand right here. It won't be a problem.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Anthony Butler. I'm the Executive Director of St. John's Bread and Life. We're one of the largest emergency feeding programs in the city, doing close to 1 million meals this year, approximately 2,800 a day. And we're not just food. We do services. We have immigration services, referrals for mental health. We have medical services on site, help people procure IDs. SNAP, we do EITC. Last year, we brought in over $3 million in tax money for the community. And that's all in response to this scandal of hunger that we see here in the city that we're going to hear about, that 1 in 5 New Yorkers is going without food. And that's really a scandal that they can't. They come to us because they have to make the choices between paying rent and buying food, paying for the transportation and buying food. And it's really, really sad that we're in business and we're so successful at this. You probably saw when you came in a giant tractor trailer loaded full of EFAP food, which is food we get from the city. New York City is a very good supporter of us in terms of food. We won't talk about the feds too much in terms of what they do for us. But still, it takes us over $3 million a year to run this place and help feed hungry New Yorkers and provide the services to get them out of poverty. So I'm happy to have Mayor de Blasio here. And I'm going to turn this over to Joel Berg, who is the Executive Director of New York City Coalition Against Hunger, who will say a few words.
Thank you, Anthony, for hosting us at this very vital center. Today, we're thrilled to have the mayor and other members of his excellent administration here to join us in our announcement of our annual hunger survey. The biggest takeaway from this year is the epidemic of working hungry people we have in New York State and New York City. Statewide and in New York City, half of all the working age people between 15 and 65 who are hungry are working. That's why we're so thrilled the mayor's consistently fought for an increase in the minimum wage. We stood earlier today with people from unions fighting for higher wages through the Port Authority at the airports, and the mayor's been such a consistent supporter of higher wages for workers everywhere. And that's really the answer. I had a brief opportunity to speak with some of the people eating breakfast here this morning, and the vast majority are working or looking for work. They just want higher paid jobs. And that's what our survey found. And nationwide, there's been a double-digit increase in the number of working people who are hungry. And that's one of the things I want to stress about our report is how much it is in line with national trends. Now, some have been criticized for talking about the need to change federal policies in order to aid New York City. I must say that is 100% true. That's 100% true. As amazing as the work of Mayor de Blasio is in fighting poverty and inequality, without more help from Washington, there's no way he can carry the load, and the taxpayers of just the city of New York can carry the load, particularly when we're exporting so much of our tax dollars to other parts of the country. So because SNAP rolls have been going down, food stamps rolls have been going down, some of that's a good reason that there's been job creation in the city. Some of that's national trends, but also because the program has been cut. There's been a $500 million reduction, a $500 million reduction in federal SNAP benefits coming to New York City over the last 4 years. The city does an amazing job funding pantries and kitchens like this, maybe $15 million a year, but it's dwarfed when the federal government isn't doing its job. The other thing we found, again, in New York City, unfortunately, too far away because there's a malt box, 1 in 4 New York City children still live in homes that can't afford. 1 in 4 New York City children still live in homes that can't afford enough food, and same statewide trends and citywide trends that the growth in jobs has not counteracted the great cuts in federal programs. A reporter asked me this morning, well, you had a media event last year with the mayor. Was this just a photo op, or did anything really change? And I will tell you, I can't speak for every other issue, but on the issue of hunger, there's been 180% change and a massive improvement with this mayor. Let me be specific. We have a commissioner of human services, unfortunately couldn't be here today, who is the best person in the country for the job. He has revolutionized social services in New York City. And for any cynical people out there who say, oh, one politician, one mayor is the same as the other, the Human Resource Administration under this administration is nothing like the Human Resource Administration under the previous administration from my point of view, and from low-income people's point of view. That's a net plus. They immediately took the waiver to allow unemployed adults who are looking for work to continue to get food as they're looking for work. And over the summer, I haven't had a chance to thank you yet. I'm thanking you now for the great progress on school breakfast. Because of this mayor, within a few years, 530 elementary schools in New York City. Every standalone elementary school in this New York City is going to serve in-classroom breakfast. That's a few 100,000 kids a day getting breakfast that wouldn't have gotten breakfast 180 school days out of the year. So are we done? No. I know the mayor will say that it's absolutely unacceptable. There's still this many people hungry and struggling in a city this wealthy. But we are on the right track. It takes a long time to get this done. But finally, we are moving in the right direction. We just need to get Washington and Albany on the same track, because we can end this problem. We almost ended hunger entirely in the 1970s in America, and we've gone backwards through conservative policies that have eviscerated living wage jobs, shredded the social safety net, given tax cuts to the mega rich, and then blame low-income people for being hungry because they don't earn enough through their full-time work in 1 or 2 or 3 jobs. So I'm thrilled to have a mayor of the city of New York who's placed this kind of work at the very centerpiece of his morality. I'm honored to be here with Mayor Bill de Blasio. Thank you.
We want everyone who takes part in one of these food programs to have for breakfast what Joel Berg has for breakfast, because they will have an energetic day. Joel, you never fail to impress me with your truly righteous energy, and for years and years, you've stood up for people who are hungry in this city. And I know sometimes it felt to you like you were a voice in the wilderness, but guess what? Your voice was heard over the years. It really shaped a lot of changes in this city, and it certainly had a very big impact on the way we have approached these issues. Let's thank Joel Berg for all he does. Well, very happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And, you know, when we're here today, we're reminded of the meaning of Thanksgiving in a different way. There is a feast happening, there is a gathering of people, and there is a joy because people are helping each other. People are supporting each other. There's a sense of community. But it's also against a backdrop that isn't joyous, because so many people have to be here because they just can't afford food. And we have to be clear about the fact that even people working hard, in so many cases, can't afford food. We have to really look at what that means about the ways our nation has gone backwards. And you know, Joel said it very powerfully. Imagine that in the 1970s, we were on the verge of solving the hunger problem in this country. How have we gone backwards? We're not any less rich as a nation. What's happened, in fact, is that that wealth is concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. And we're rewarding, in terms of the policies of this nation, we're rewarding wealth instead of work. So there's no doubt of how many people are working hard and unable to make ends meet. I've been talking about it over the last few years. The 46% of New Yorkers at or near the poverty level. You've seen recent data that proves it again. You've seen public opinion surveys where people are talking about their own lives and how much they're struggling. This is not an acceptable status quo. It just isn't. And everyone has to be a part of changing it. Obviously, we need very different policies in Washington and Albany. We have to keep making more changes here in the city. The private sector has to make changes as well. I've been calling upon the private sector to increase wages and benefits voluntarily. And some, not because of me, but some have made that choice for their own beliefs, because they think that's what they should do as good corporate citizens, or because they believe, as Henry Ford did, that to have a functioning economy, working people actually have to have money to spend. And if they can barely make ends meet, you don't have a middle class and you don't have a thriving economy where people are buying things and therefore more and more people are employed at better and better wages. But the private sector has to step up, because this state of affairs can't go on. It just can't. So we have to work on all those fronts. But in the meantime, I want to thank everyone at St. John's Bread and Life. It's an extraordinary organization. Just being here is very life-affirming. It's a beautiful facility. I know people worked very hard to create a facility that could serve people with dignity and respect. There's a great energy among the staff and the volunteers. And they've been at it for 3 decades, feeding neighbors in need. And what noble work that is. 2,500 meals every day to some of the hungriest New Yorkers, plus help getting people to medical care and legal counseling and so much as well. So if you work here, I'm going to ask you to join in. If you don't work here, even more enthusiastically, let's thank everyone at St. John's Bread and Life for all they do. And many, many people are part of this effort. Again, at St. John's, I want to thank Tony Butler and Christy Robb for their leadership. I want to thank Councilmember Robert Cornegy, you'll hear from in a moment, who has been a great partner in so much of the work of trying to reach people who need a helping hand. And from our administration, I want to thank Gil Taylor, who works so hard every day. Being the Commissioner for Homeless Services in New York City is a job for a strong man, and Gil, we thank you for your strength taking on that job every day. Barbara Turk, Director of Mayor's Office of Food Policy, thank you for helping us to change the approach, as Joel said, to make it stronger than it's ever been before. Thank you for your leadership. So it's a time of year when we naturally take stock, and we are thankful. We're thankful for what we have. And I have to tell you, I find this all the time. I hear more gratitude from the poorest New Yorkers than from anyone else. And it's one of those things that always is eye-opening. Folks who often have very little, but are incredibly thankful for that which they have, are thankful that they woke up that morning, are thankful that there are people to help them find that next meal. I think this is a society where we all need to work at being a little more thankful, and I certainly, this time of year, thankful for the blessings I have, particularly for my family. But let's take that thankfulness and think about the next person who needs our help and what we can do. And this crisis that Joel described, which is absolutely connected to the inequality crisis, to the affordability crisis that this city confronts, it's not something we can allow to stand. And it's, you know, you can hear the words and think, well, does that mean we're going to call it out every year and feel bad about it, or are we actually going to find a way to change it? In this city, we believe we're finding some of the ways to change it, but we will have to fight on many other fronts for the bigger changes. 1.4 million New Yorkers cannot adequately feed themselves and their families. Think about that, 1.4 million. That's not a strong and sustainable dynamic. That's not a society that's firing on all cylinders. That's not us at our best. There has to be a series of changes. And people overwhelmingly, I find this all the time, people don't want to have to choose between food and the rent or food and health care. They have no choice. They have no choice. And I certainly know from previous generations of my family, many, many people over the years had to make those choices in past generations. But again, we thought we had advanced our way out of it. As the greatest nation in the world, we thought we had moved beyond that, but no. 1.4 million people in the largest, most sophisticated city in the country. 1.4 million people. And it is so often people, excuse me, people who are working. And that's the thing we have to look in the eye. So many negative stereotypes were propagated about lower income folks over the years. But one thing that is finally breaking through today is people are working, and that's not enough. As Joel said, 1 job, 2 jobs, even 3 jobs. At the minimum wage we have and with the cost of living in the city, it's not enough. People still have to make those extraordinarily tough choices between the basics. And that's why we need to make a series of changes. What we know our obligation to do here in this city is to put the resources into the food kitchen, the food pantries, the soup kitchens that have worked so well, that have made such an impact. We support through our emergency food assistance program 485 pantries and kitchens in the 5 boroughs. So we know it's our obligation to be out there, provide that support. In the last fiscal year, we distributed over 10.4 million pounds of food. And that was, again, serving an average of 1.2 million people every month. We've increased that funding now so that we can reach even more people. That's one of the things we have an obligation to do. We have an obligation to keep working despite the cutbacks in the SNAP program and food stamps, to keep working to get that support to people who are eligible. Something I know Joel's worked on for years, and I've had the honor of partnering with him many times. We're going to keep doing that work because someone who deserves that federal benefit, we don't want to see it held back from them. We want them to have good, healthy food. And I really want to thank everyone at St. John's, because one of the things I got educated on today, because you're doing something very smart. You're focusing on healthier and healthier food all the time. A lot of whole wheat products and a lot of very healthy choices are provided to people to help make this food that they get even better for them. And that's something we need to work on. That's something that food stamps is a crucial part of. But again, we can keep doing this. We will keep doing this to help people in need. This is not a solution. The solution is a higher minimum wage. The solution is better benefits for people, is more affordable housing. This is what will actually change people's lives. Hundreds of thousands of people living in poverty right now in this city don't need to if we would only raise their minimum wage. This is what we talk about in our One NYC plan. We say if we get to that $15 minimum wage that so many people are fighting for all over the country, that we will be able to raise 800,000 people out of poverty, almost 1 in 10 New Yorkers over the next decade, in addition to, in combination with our other efforts, the affordable housing efforts, paid sick leave, so many other things we're trying to do to reach people. Pre-K, after school, that takes huge expenses off of families' budgets. These things will work, but we can't do it alone. We must have action in both Albany and Washington if we really want to have a thriving middle-class city again. So I want to, at this moment, not only say a very happy Thanksgiving to all my fellow New Yorkers, but also say to people who actually are the most generous people anywhere in the country, because New Yorkers, behind our rough exteriors, we have a heart of gold. We really do. And people in this city are kind and compassionate. So if you feel that you want to help people at this holiday season, please reach out to 311 and you'll be directed to how to donate food or how to make a monetary donation to organizations like St. John's Bread and Life. It is a very powerful thing to do to celebrate your own thankfulness, to celebrate the bounty that your own family will experience over the next few days. Help some other people to have that same opportunity. Call 311, make a donation. Call 311 if you want to volunteer, if you want to support great organizations like this, and be right there to help people in need. I tell you, people who are in need are so thankful that others who are more fortunate come out to help them. So that's a way we can take our gratitude and put it into action. And then let's remember, when Thanksgiving is over, when Christmas is over, when all the holidays are over, you just got to stick to it, because the holiday season brings out a special understanding in us. But this battle will go on, and we need people to be a part of it until we actually can get a decent standard of living to all our people. Quickly in Spanish, and then I'd like to turn to Councilmember Cornegie, who represents this community. Quiero desearles un feliz día de acción de gracias a todos. Hay demasiados neoyorquinos pasando hambre que se ven obligados a elegir entre un plato de comida o pagar el alquiler, o que dependen de comedores populares para alimentar a sus familias. Todos juntos debemos hacer todo lo posible para ayudar a nuestros vecinos y que todos podamos tener comida en nuestras mesas. Por eso, invito a todos los neoyorquinos a ayudar como voluntarios o donar dinero o alimentos llamando al 311. Muchas gracias. And with that, again, a strong partner in the work of helping people in need and in so much of the work of this administration, man who represents this wonderful community, Councilmember Robert Cornegie.
Good afternoon. You know, I am inexplicably tied to St. John's Bread and Life as a St. John's alumni, and I'm very proud of the work that happens here. You know, when I first came in, all I could think about was the phrase that was coined by our mayor many years ago, which was a tale of two cities. And if a tale of two cities is how we describe New York City, Bedford-Stuyvesant certainly epitomizes that, where you have brownstones valued at $2 million, and you have families who can't feed themselves. That's crazy. But to have a partner like St. John's Bread of Life, where my office has a solid referral source I was proud to be able to dedicate some discretionary funding to the support services that are here. So not just food happens here, but support services that are necessary for the livelihoods of New Yorkers, but specifically those in my district. So I just want to say publicly, I want to thank the mayor and this current administration for its commitment to fighting hunger and poverty and homelessness and affordable housing and mental health and substance abuse, all of the things that aren't quite as sexy in a city like New York City, but that are essential for us all to be successful. So that commitment, although it's not heralded the way it should be, is a commitment and a testament to the fact that this administration understands what's going on in the city of New York and how New Yorkers are suffering. So it's a pleasure to serve in a progressive administration and an administration that's willing to look at the needs of all New Yorkers, not just the wealthiest New Yorkers, not just the decision makers, but all New Yorkers. So today I thank the administration for its commitment, but I also thank St. John's Bread of Life for its continued commitment over years. Again, I'm inextricably tied here, not only because this is my community and they serve here as well as other parts of the city, but because as an alumnus, it's very important to watch the growth and development of St. John's Bread and Life and the impact that it has on some of New Yorkers, some of the most needy New Yorkers. So thank you.
Amen. All right. Thank you, and very happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you.